Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So over in Canada, we had a hearing in British Columbia about a new bill that was proposed by the Conservatives, put forward by the Conservative Party leader, John Rustad. And he said that this was a bill that was spearheaded by women for women.
It's an honour to stand in this House to introduce the Fairness in Women and Girls Sports Act. I'm proud to say that before this House, the amazing women and girls who are here with us today, that this piece of legislation is not only the first of its kind in Canada, but it was an entirely female-led initiative from start to finish. The bill was written by women and girls for women and girls.
It's designed to ensure that sports teams are classified as women only, men only, or co-ed. Very simple. It sought to ensure that sports was based on biological sex and not identity. It also had some measures in place that gave women legal recourse if they were discriminated against based on not going along with insanity. It stated that women should not face retaliation for simply pointing out the differences between men and women, for simply objecting to having to compete against biological males. And this bill was backed by various experts, including Dr. Deborah So, who was a sex neuroscientist and author of The End of Gender. And she wrote, "Humans are a sexually reproducing species that come in two forms, male and female. The two sexes are sexually dimorphic, meaning that males and females exhibit countless evolutionary-based anatomical, hormonal, physiological, morphological, and behavioral differences. Hence, it is profoundly unjust to permit biological males to compete with biological females merely because the former self-identify as so-called women. Until 5 minutes ago, the 117 billion people who had ever existed on Earth knew that distinction, but apparently, this is no longer a meaningful distinction. As a result, thousands of female athletes are seeing their hard work erased by this breathtaking departure from reason." So there you have it. When you get somebody tell you that you're not a doctor, you're not a biologist, so you have no right to comment on the differences between men and women, apparently. This bill was backed by doctors, various experts. This bill simply sought to protect women and girls. It was designed to ensure that women's sports is kept safe and fair. What's so bad about that? Seriously.
This bill provides that sports and athletic teams, events and tournaments that are publicly funded must be classified by sex and limits participation to participants of the biological sex that corresponds to the sex classification. An exception is provided for female participation. Maintaining opportunities for female athletes to demonstrate the strength, skills, and athletic abilities, and to provide them with the opportunity to obtain recognition and accolades, university scholarships, and numerous other short and long-term benefits that result from participating and competing in athletic endeavours in the province of British Columbia, separate from their male counterparts, is just common sense. There are inherent differences between males and females, ranging from chromosomal and hormonal differences to physiological differences. But more than the obvious differences, over time, women and girls have struggled to be identified as a person. They have struggled to have the right to vote. They have struggled to be allowed to be in certain places. And they have struggled to be paid fairly. And here today in 2024 in this legislature, with the necessity to move forward the bill to make sure that once again, women are treated fairly. For these reasons, the Conservative Party of British Columbia finds that requiring the designation of separate sex-specific athlete teams or sports is vital in order to maintain the fairness for women and girl athletic opportunities in British Columbia. I would urge all members of this House to vote in support of this legislation because we all deserve to live our lives with integrity.
So unfortunately, this bill was completely and utterly blocked by the Premier David Eby, who is the leader of the New Democratic Party in British Columbia. And it was no surprise, to be honest, that the bill was blocked, but at least people got to hear the sound reasoning as to why this legislation is important, why it was proposed in the first place, and why it is needed. So when it comes to election time in Canada, I'm sure people are going to remember this and bear that in mind when it comes to voting. So of course, the reasons given for blocking this bill were the typical reasons, the hyperbolic language that people use, that activists use, to disparage people who just want to protect women's sports, who want to stand up for girls. Apparently, this has now been classed as a hate bill. They do the same thing here in the US. They will rename the bill even, like the Don't Say Gay bill, and they will deliberately misrepresent it to the public. And that's what's happening with this bill. So this bill is apparently a hate bill against transgender people, a bill that seeks to remove transgender people from participating in sports. It's a bill that has come out as a result of Trump-style politics. Trump derangement syndrome apparently is a worldwide condition, a worldwide pandemic, even at the expense of women and girls in sports. And of course, their response is totally irrational, totally ignores the main points, the main concerns, no science, no real facts, just disparaging people who support women, disparaging people who support girls. So Ravi Palmer, this was his take on the bill. Every day in the legislature, we are fighting the extreme, out of touch, and Trump-style politics of John Rustad and the BC Conservative Party. Our Premier is steadfast in fighting for the people of BC and standing strong against hate and division, because that's what this proposed bill was. Hate and division, by simply saying that sports should be based on biological sex. Something that has always been the case, by the way, by simply stressing the importance of protecting women and girls, of giving them a fair shot like everybody else gets. And then David Eby said, no one should have to wake up fearing incidents of hate, especially children. The conservative BC policies encourage division, incite hateful voices, and threaten our kids' safety. These aren't the values of British Columbia.
The member knows that in the budget we dedicated $1 billion to increase treatment options for British Columbians. The part of our announcement on Friday was a province-wide virtual clinic, so British Columbians across the province can access treatment. The member says that he doesn't see any benefit in those kinds of policies. Okay, well, that's his position. But I don't see any benefit in the member's policies allowing violent protesters to bang on the windows of our kids' schools. I don't see any benefit in the members' policies of compensating anti-vaxxers in our province who defy public health orders. I don't see any benefit in the members' initiatives that go so contrary to the values of British Columbians, where a 9-year-old kid at a track meet in Kelowna who's confronted by an angry man who insists that she's a boy and shouldn't be allowed to compete in the track meet, that he would stand in this place and introduce a bill that would legalize the conduct of that man bullying a little child. Talk about zero benefit. Talk about a lack of interest in public safety for everybody, Honourable Speaker. The member claims to represent the values of British Columbians. Well, he is completely wrong.
Of course, they completely forget about young girls being bullied, women being harassed and bullied for simply objecting to this insanity, for simply objecting to competing against male athletes. They completely forget about that. And then they take one situation that wouldn't even exist if you did things correctly and ensured that sports was based on biological sex, not identity. That would never happen if there weren't any male athletes in women's sports. People are going to object as long as that remains. Nothing in the bill permits anybody to go up to a child and start yelling at them. And I've read the bill, and of course, nothing in the bill permits anything that he was saying there, and he knows it. But he's trying to present a completely irrational argument that avoids the real issues. That is the effect of having males in women's sports, the opportunities it takes away from women and girls, the fact that it puts their safety in jeopardy. All of those factors cannot be ignored. And by simply saying that we need to look at those factors and protect our women and girls, that does not equate to bullying children. That does not equate to Trump-style politics. That is not hate. If anything, I would say that telling young girls that in order to participate in sports, you have to be willing to compete against males. You have to keep silent when your spot is taken by a male athlete. If you don't keep silent, you're a bigot. We would disparage you. If anything, I would call that misogyny. I would call that the harassment and bullying of young girls. That's why women and girls don't speak out. They're afraid to, because of the backlash, because of the harassment, because of the bullying. All of that is ignored, though, just to push forward an ideology that clearly these politicians seem to be very committed towards. It's pushing forward an ideology at the expense of women and girls. So let's see what people had to say about him talking about Trump-style politics. April said, "Time to resign? You have done nothing to protect little girls' safety or fairness in sports. Who's the hateful one, really? So hypocritical. How dare you make a statement like that when you don't even protect little girls' safety and fairness in sports? And you have kids? For the love of God, stop breeding. At least do your kids a favour. You'll be out of the door in October." Misogynistic NDP. Men do not belong in women's sports. Men do not belong in women's safe spaces. That's it. Why is that such a controversial statement to make? Mr. Eby, you are trying to do a job you are unqualified to do. Resign. I remember when you came across as a common sense, fair, moral, and critical thinking leader. Now, for some reason, when you communicate, your emphasis and inflection in your speaking patterns sound very similar to that of a certain few out east. The trigger points remind me of how marketers bait their target audience into buying their constructs. I suspect your ambitions of climbing the ladder of power trump what is best for a healthy nation of opportunity. Wow. And I really wouldn't push forward legislation that encourages children to undergo transitioning, to be on hormones, to be on puberty blockers. I really wouldn't encourage that in light of what's going on in the UK. Canada's a Commonwealth country. You should really take notice of what's going on. And the UK are moving away from that now because it's been shown in no uncertain terms that it is harmful. So there you have it. If you care about women's sports, if you care about keeping it safe and fair, you're a bigot. And it's so funny that he will call this Trump-style politics, when the reality is this issue is so absurd that it has brought together people of different political views, different political persuasions, whether they lean left, lean right, in the middle. It has brought together so many people from different backgrounds who simply understand that all this is common sense. That simply understand that women's sports is going to be destroyed, is going to be ruined if this continues. People can clearly see the writing on the wall. This was a bill that simply sought to ensure that women weren't erased from their own sports. Anyone with common sense can see where this is going. When you look back at who won certain tournaments over the years, you're going to see the names of male athletes. That is the literal erasure of female athletes. Anybody with a daughter knows that this is not the path that they want to go down when it comes to women's sports.
So, of course, this is an issue that 95% of common sense, everyday Americans, of course, parents, coaches, medical professionals, female athletes themselves, they see this happening, and this certainly turns them away. This really isn't a battle of red versus blue. Really what this is sane versus insane, really moral versus evil.
There have been a few stories coming out of British Columbia of men, straight up men, in women's change rooms, in women's bathrooms. The last story I did was a man saying that he can identify as a woman with a beard and there's nothing you can do about it. Telling that to a woman, that there was nothing she could do about it. And he's right, because the laws that exist today allow him to be in the bathroom.
Our LGBTQ+2 community and our trans community have rights, but that does not impede upon the rights of our girls and our women. And in no way can that erode our sense of safety, security, privacy, nor dignity. And that is what this is about today. Because this has happened numerous times. We already have a case like this on Vancouver Island in Nanaimo at the swimming pool where a man peeked under the stall of a young girl. And when that mother escorted him out, she was the one who was villainized in the community, in the media, and by our representatives. Disgusting. We need to be able to stand for the rights of our girls and us women, because we have fought through history for these rights. This is not about eroding the rights of anyone else.
These are going to continue to happen when we decide that identity precedes biology. The floodgates have been opened, and bills like the Women's and Sports Act simply sought to re-establish boundaries, to re-establish biology being the deciding factor. That's all this bill sought to achieve. It's not hate, it's not bigotry, it actually protects people. So if you're happy having the Nicholas Sepedas of this world feel entitled to swim with 12, 13-year-old girls, feel entitled to be in the showers when they are present, to be in their locker rooms or change rooms, if you're okay with that sort of thing, then of course I can understand why you would oppose such a bill. And let's take a look at the politicians who opposed this bill. And my question to them is why? Why would you oppose protections for women and girls? Why would you oppose fairness for women and girls? Especially if you have daughters. When they participate in sports, do you think it's fair that a male athlete completely dominates their competition and they have to be okay with that? Do you think it's fair for a girl to come second only because she competed against a male athlete, when that trophy, that medal, that gold medal, or even that record should have gone to her? But it is going to somebody who shouldn't even be in her category in the first place, because sports is categorized for a reason. That's how it has always been. You see a lot of women there as well. None of them, if they ever competed in sports, had to compete against men when they were in school, when they were in college. They want girls and women today to have less protection than they did when they competed in sports. Why? Only conclusion I could come to is that they've decided that their gender ideology cult is more important than women and girls. So let me know what you think. I'm hoping when it comes to election time, we're going to get these people out of there and common sense can be restored once again in British Columbia. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.